Welcome to Inside Startup Investing, the only podcast where you can invest in every guest. On this episode, I will be speaking with the co-founder and co-CEO of Plunge, Ryan Duey. Plunge is a leading cold plunge and sauna brand that has brought a modern flair and consumer awareness to wanting to own these types of products at home. A few things that I think you should listen for as an investor in this episode are first, when I first heard these guys sell cold plunges, yes, I mean cold plunges that you dunk into with freezing cold water to help your body heal after workouts, I really didn't feel as though it would be a big market. But they are currently generating over $80 million in sales yearly, which is insane, and they've hardly raised any outside equity capital to do so. When you look at the numbers, the penetration of cold plunges in both the consumer and commercial segment are still extremely low, which means there's a lot of upside here that I hadn't realized. Second, Plunge has figured out how to do the hard things well. From designing to manufacturing to frankly delivering these huge plunge products to their customers, this team has had to work through logistical nightmares to actually pull this off, and they're proving highly capable of doing so. Lastly, I came to understand that Plunge is building an affinity for their brand and style, with an opportunity to grow beyond just cold plunges into other well-designed health and wellness categories. But most importantly, as crazy as cold plunges sound, when you start trying to grasp the size of the market, think every spa in the country wanting one of these, you start realizing there might be a much bigger opportunity than you initially think. And that could set up for a major acquisition opportunity for Plunge. So with that, let's get on to the show and welcome Ryan. Ryan, thanks so much for joining us today.
Glad to be here, man. Looking forward to the convo.
Yeah, well, I'm not always using puns in my podcast, but let's just plunge into it. Tell us about how you came to found this company, your background, and what it's all about.
Yeah, so we're Plunge, the market leader, cold plunge, and now sauna company. We build and sell cold plunges. That's I'd say the simplest way to say what we do. I started the company about 5 years ago with my co-founder Mike Garrett. Our backgrounds, we both owned brick-and-mortar health and wellness businesses. So of the health and wellness space, definitely knew the culture of it and utilize these products, and this was our lifestyle, but different in the sense that some of the skill sets you learn in the brick and mortar service industry now over to an e-commerce hardware manufacturing side, very different. But anyways, we launched the company 5 years ago out of the garage. It was kind of we thought there was a big opportunity here. We thought there was some market that really hadn't been tapped. We did not expect it to the scale that it has grown already. But our original businesses were shut down during the height of COVID and gave us some time. Mike starts tinkering with a product in the garage. He's definitely a more product focused guy in the company, and he starts building this and he pitches me. He said, "Hey, what do you think? Should we make a company out of this?" And our original plan was, let's build 20 of these and we'll hand deliver around Northern California and we'll sell to our brick and mortar customers. And that was the genesis of the company. And now 5 years later, 40,000 customers and cold plunges all over the world, and it's been an awesome ride.
So you've created these cold plunges. Can you tell us what the unmet need was? Why there's 40,000 customers whose needs weren't being met when you started this thing?
Yeah, early on, I'd say our main competition was the chest freezer. There was a lot of people, the biohacker world, very early adopters that were already into this. They were wanting to do this. They would build a chest freezer. I'd say the only other players were maybe like a $20,000 unit. And so we kind of came in at this spot that was like, how do we make this more affordable to what 20,000 is, and make this safe and sleek looking? So I think our big value proposition was, a simple e-commerce experience that you can come on and purchase, but both people in the household, the man and woman, both liked and appreciated the look and the experience of the tub. And so that was our big win early on, and we've held to that. I think design is one of our key pillars. You can always tell a Plunge product, and we pride ourselves on that.
You've come a long way. I believe at some point you were on Shark Tank. Is that correct?
Yeah, about a year in, we filmed on Shark Tank. It aired about a year and a half into the business.
And how did that impact the business? Because you hear all sorts of stories. Sometimes it's incredible, sometimes it's terrible. I'm just curious what that experience was like and what it did for the business.
For us, it was incredible. We still see, I'd say, about 3 to 5% of attribution across all sales still to Shark Tank. I mean, that was,
Wow.
if you really, calculate that out, that's probably our best ROI marketing experience we've done. Definitely from a cost perspective, but it's, attributable to tens of millions of dollars. So for us, it was an incredible experience. It was personally rewarding just to be on there and, have that experience with the Sharks. Grew up watching that show. But I think it was also great for cold plunging. It was this first time of a mainstream experience. I think Robert had if you haven't seen it, it's a great, you can go on YouTube, you can see the clip. But he got in the cold plunge, had a very authentic experience, the first kind of freak out, but then he kind of settled in, and I think it was a really cool TV moment.
So, the concept of doing a cold plunge and then actually reserving space in your home for this cold plunge and then spending the money to get the cold plunge and keep up with it. Those are all things when I think about, hey, what are the limiting factors here? Now you're doing, I think, almost $90 million a year in sales. So there's clearly lots of buyers out there. But when you think about the growth opportunity for cold plunge, like how big can this thing be and what are the hindrances to going beyond where you are today?
Yeah, I think there's a couple layers into that question. I think the market size itself, one comp that we look at is the hot tub industry and how that grew in the 80s. I think hot tub's a less friction product to get into. It's obviously more of a immediately enjoyable experience as opposed to cold. But even if you extrapolate that out and, take that at a much smaller percentage of what the hot tub industry is, and if cold can become that, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Hot tubs are still doing 5 billion annual sales a year. That's just recurring, and that's not a product that you're buying. You buy a hot tub once every 5-7 years. That's similar to the cold. So I think that kind of gives legs to the cold plunge, and I do think there's emerging studies coming out on the cold. I think it fits to a lot of lifestyle dynamics that are coming into, short, impactful modalities that people can utilize for mood and energy. And then the other way that we look at it is like, we're plunge. We are synonymous with that term in the industry, but we're not only that brand. We've launched the sauna. We really look at, to your point, you brought up like people that have space. So when we really think about our core customers, we have a group of customers that care about health and wellness, that are relatively affluent. There's different ranges that we have, but also they have backyard space. So what can we create that fits to that core customer? So even if we believe cold's going to grow to the level that I just stated, but we are also like designing and launching products that we can cross-sell our current customer base. We can bring in a new consumer base that maybe wasn't into cold. We're also, as we launch saunas, we've brought in a lot of new people into the ecosystem that were in market for sauna. And then 6 months later, they're like, okay, I've been learning about cold, maybe through our content, maybe just through the zeitgeist, and then they get the cold plunge. And vice versa. Same with that. We had our cold products, and then we got a lot of people into sauna. So we want to innovate in those categories, and we equally have a plan and roadmap to launch adjacent categories as well.
And what about the room in kind of the commercial space, hotels, spas, so on and so forth?
Yeah, it's a big part of our biz. I think we'll do about 25% on the B2B side this year.
Oh, wow.
Up from and that's 25 of total rev. Last year was about 15. So it's an emerging spot for us. I think it's a bit unique of how this industry from the cold has gone residential before commercial. I think it feels historically a lot of things tend to go commercial and kind of you have an easier adoption rate for people. And then the residential side, I think of like, you had the Soul Cycle before the Peloton, where for us it's kind of vice versa. Plunge came first and now the commercial side's coming in. But it goes back to our hypothesis of the growth of the industry. We have one commercial client at the scale that they're opening locations right now. We predict 10 million people to be doing 10 million cold plunge sessions over the next 3 years. Wow. So it's like you think about a flywheel in a growth sector of not just we're excited for us as a business, obviously on that front end purchase, the back end consumer getting into it, but just the industry. People getting into cold water, people having this experience like, wow, this is life changing. This is something I could work into my life. So I think that's where we're going to start seeing some accelerants of the industry itself.
And is that part of the thinking around entering new categories like the sauna, being like, hey, we're already selling into these, folks who are starting up these hotels or spas or whatever it may be, might as well sell them adjacent products they're going to need with the kind of like buy into this brand and this kind of cooler vibe?
Yeah, it's definitely, we have the core customer that we're already talking to. So that's a huge one. And then it's also the back end infrastructure team. We have in-house engineers. We have a pretty sophisticated ops structure. So it fits well to what we're doing as well in like hardware and manufacturing. And now some of the software we're building on the back end of all of our products to kind of make it a cohesive ecosystem. So I think it's like we've built the team to go do it. And then it's also, how do we not just have someone buying from us once every 5 years? How do we increase that purchase cycle?
What are the challenges of, this is not just a simple or small device. You're building something that's really large that has multiple different components involved with it. What are the challenges of manufacturing something like this? Where is it being produced? Yeah, what are things you've run into in the manufacturing process that have kind of, blown you away in terms of the complexity that you guys have figured out?
A lot. Definitely learned a lot through this process. I think, cold plunges themselves are a very unique system. They are HVAC systems that have water running through them consistently. Work in all sorts of environments. You have people in Phoenix all the way to, upstate New York. So there's a lot of different conditions that go into a pretty complex system already, where like a sauna is a very straightforward heating. It's a very straightforward system that, so cold, we've had to learn a lot into like how do these products work best? What do we need to add to them? So we've made a lot of iterations. We have a really exciting Generation 2 unit coming out. Not much different on the front facing for the consumer, but a big upgrade that we've on all of our new units going out now. So that's been like a big learning lesson for us. More people have gotten into our cold plunges than anyone in the world. So that's an exciting opportunity for us to learn as much as possible and synthesize that data and make a good product. So that's been a lot to learn. I think simplicity of just like shipping and logistics of a big hardware product, and how do we make a really good experience on something that's just not normally, that's pretty robust. It can be challenging to get set up. It's, so we've tried to make the plunge as simple as possible when you get it. Same with our sauna. I think we've done something pretty interesting in the industry of that, cutting down that setup time. But all challenges that we have to work through and figure out. The other big one is also support at scale. Products go out. These are all over the country. We're all over the world, but we're mostly U.S. and Canada. But having obviously a U.S.-based support team that is there to connect, but at scale, and can support and take all the inbounds that are needed. And then on the flip side is we've built out a technician network. So you have a plunge or you have a sauna and network, we can send someone out to work on your unit. So think of Sears and how they have their, washer dryer technician team, or Geek Squad with, Best Buy and some of those that can come work on a laptop. We've built this system out. But again, those didn't happen overnight. That started in the early days with us calling people on Angie's List. And, hey, are you in Austin? Can you go work on when we were super small still? And that has grown out into this national network. So yeah, I think it's a number of those things in the building of it, and then also the support side of it.
Do you have any anecdotes you could share? I just don't think people realize sometimes how challenging it could be to do manufacturing and to build things. And like when you think about moats, right, people think of all these like kind of strategic terms or things you learn in an MBA class, but then there's a moat of just being able to execute. Like, do you have any stories of things just going horribly wrong? Because that's the moments where you learn, right, and figure out, hey, this is how we get it right the next time.
Last summer was a pretty challenging moment for us. We launched a new product, and we were really excited on it. We've been working super hard on it. Our original Generation 1 unit, it was the genius of it was we kind of took off the shelf parts and built one cohesive unit, and it allowed us to scale. We didn't have to go build this new supply chain. But anyways, we spent the next 2 years designing all of our new products that you see now on our website. So we launched what we called the Evolve series. And one of our chiller sets, it was called the Pro Chiller, we shipped out the first month, and it was the first, we'd done testing on this, but not enough. And we had shipped out that first month. It was the first time we had shipped a product, basically parcel. So it wasn't going LTL, which is a different, on the crate. And we had, the show up rate and damage in transit was a huge issue. And so that was like a challenge of something that we had not seen. It was higher than the variant number that we had thought. And then we'd also, we're demand planning. We have so much product. Of course, any unit that has an issue, we're shipping a new one out. So now we're cutting into inventory. And that was like a really, kind of understanding, the impacts of demand planning and not being fully prepared on that. So that took us, we solved that and got improved that. But got to move really quick on that stuff because there's a new unit going out the next day, and we got to get that in front of that before there's a risk of a customer having a bad experience.
Absolutely.
So I think that was one that was a challenging kind of, we thought we had every basis covered. Had sent it out to the FedEx factory to do the testing and came back good. And then there was just, it wasn't to where the level we wanted it. The other big one that's taken us a while, and I'm really proud to where we're at, but it is there's a support of, like, we've built our customer support team, but there's a totally different infrastructure that goes in on the commercial side. A commercial client is different than a residential client. And we've built a cohesive team, and we've kind of now have sub-departments within our support, but we didn't really have enterprise level infrastructure on our customer support team. And it took us some time to really understand that customer and what their expectations are and how to support them. So that was, again, another learning lesson. It wasn't like we just could launch a product and sell it in there and it's the same. It's like, oh, this is a totally different consumer. The questions they have, the people we're interacting with, it's an employee instead of a residential person. There's not as much stress. There's not revenue being lost here. Different questions. So, those are 2 areas that we've been hard at work on to improve.
Yeah, you haven't been around that long. I mean, 5 years, that's not a ton of time. The fact that you've gotten to, again, nearly $90 million in annual sales, that's not an easy thing to do from a production standpoint, but production requires a lot of investment, right? And all of these things. So in terms of how you finance this business, how have you gotten here? Has it been venture? Has it been family offices, individuals? How have you financed it? How are you managing that on a go-forward basis?
So we built the business early on, bootstrapped. I would say as simplest way possible is we put enough money in to buy one, we sold that one, and then we took that money and we bought enough to buy 2, and whatever that, we just built that way. And then early on we had a long lead time, which, we weren't big, we weren't, there wasn't a ton of competition, so it didn't impact conversion rate much. So we were able to kind of finance ourselves. We had an 8-week lead time, so we can get cash up front and then purchase. And that's how we build. Obviously, we got to a certain size. Then we used some debt financing from like the Wayflyers of the world and the e-commerce lenders, and we utilized that. And then we had a debt partner that came in last year and came in to kind of, and our plan had always been, which is on a fundraising side, let's bring in our debt partner. They'll basically give us a bridge loan, and we will position the company to go raise money here in the next 12 to 18 months, which is what we're executing on now. We've done, gearing up for our first real fundraise here. And then we opened it up to the community round. That was something Mike and I was always really excited on and important to us. We thought that would have been really cool. We didn't even know that existed, really, that there was like a world of WeFunder. But we always thought, like, man, these customers are so excited on this product. Like, what if they became owners someday? What if they invested? And so when we were gearing up to look at this fundraise, we were like, well, it'd be pretty cool if we raised a chunk of that change from our current customer base. So that's what we're in the midst of right now. And then we'll raise, a larger check later this year that we think will really carry us kind of to where we want to go as a company, which we gear up for potential acquisition down the road. A lot of bootstrapping, which, to your point, it's a it's a cash intensive business,
Mm-hmm.
which is I think where we've really gotten over the last 6 months. Like, okay, let's really capitalize this business because it's had impact on us. We've had to run lead times, and we know conversion rate drops dramatically when we on lead times because we've got to be very tight with our demand plan. Either end, if we have too much inventory, that's an impact on cash for sure. We got it tied up there. If we go too short, now we're out, and that's going to impact conversion and sales. So, it gives less degree of any range of issue. So that's where we're real excited to capitalize, and we've brought on some good people so far, and yeah, it's been helpful.
That's awesome. When you think about manufacturing capacity with what you have today, are you outsourcing your manufacturing? Do you control that whole process in-house? And then if that's the case, how big can you be with just your current manufacturing footprint, and what do you need to do to be able to scale up to $200-400 million in revenue?
Great question. Yeah. So how our portfolio looks, we do the manufacturing of sauna in California. Current facility, we could close to 2x what we're at right now. We are going to attempt to get some of our panels done offshore, which would help alleviate some of that space. So sauna is a really fast growing part of the biz right now. But that is something we have to solve probably in the next 12 months of how to expand that production capacity. But that's all done in the U.S. And then the cold side, majority of all of our products are coming from China. So we have a new, so we do all assembly and quality control in the U.S. at our headquarters in California, and our new partners that we just joined on with as a CM for our chilling systems. They have capacity for north of 300 million. So that was a big shift for us to really move with them on a scale standpoint, just to improve partner from, quality control that they have, timelines, whole process. And then our tubs, we go through a different vendor on that. And these are all specific SKUs and designed, specifically for us.
Got it. So when you think about kind of growth levers, is it kind of new product lines, more sales, and more manufacturing capacity? Are those kind of the three key drivers of growth?
Yeah, the manufacturing capacity, it hasn't really been a constraint. The constraint has actually, like I talked about, has been cash at times. We can't be as aggressive to get inventory, or so I think that is for sure a growth lever. I mean, we did a recent study with a third party, very neutral party, came in and kind of looked at our lead times and conversion rates over this time when lead times were up and down, and it was substantial. I mean, tens, 8 figures substantially of revenue lost over this time. So I think that's like a window right there that's sitting for us. Product innovation, absolutely. What can we launch that's incremental to the category? And then the commercial side, I think, has a real momentum in growing right now, just due to those sales cycles have been longer. We're starting to pick up with a lot of these buyers, big POs. So those are the main areas that we're really focused on into growing into.
When you think about acquirers, do you see that as kind of like a private equity play where a private equity firm is kind of buying you out? Or do you see it, is there, large sauna companies or things like that could be interested in something like this?
I think both. There's already some great equipment companies that are out there that I could see really being a fit for. But then I think there's some interesting emerging health and wellness companies that are, a hybrid of software, hardware that could be interesting into what we're doing. I think there's an interesting converging world right now of, hardware, health and wellness with software health and wellness. And it's something we're building internally into how do we tap into some of these, different wearables and different analytics that people can get themselves using our products. Or, obviously longevity and biomarker companies are a big one that's emerging right now. Which is why you do our products, to get healthier. How do we show that in this process? So I think it could be a lot of those different companies. And then there's, a lot of home design type places that can be a fit. I think anyone that, really does great at manufacturing, has strong logistics, I think are areas that can bring huge value to us, and we can be a big fit for. I mean, we are a strong consumer brand. We know how to get customers. We can attract customers, and then there's operational size that some companies just have at scale. That's just a multiplier for us. So I think it's a pretty wide options of people that could be a fit.
I love it. To help us understand better, we're not in this day to day, how big an opportunity this can be. Again, with it being a new category and stuff, it's a little harder to kind of size, how big this can get. Help us understand how you think about, just how large this can get.
The industry itself, I mean, this is a emerging multi-billion dollar industry. And I think there's room for a number of players here. Sauna's been around, but growing like crazy. If you're just looking at the cold, this is a into the billions industry for sure. Emerging there, not there yet, not even into a billion yet. Very early on. I mean, if you talk of, there are about 30 million people that are probably in the income range that could purchase a cold plunge right now. That would be, of people that have a cold plunge, maybe 100,000. And that's in the US. So that's something that I look at. It's like, we're so early. It's less on how big, it's more of like, how quickly can this get educated? How quickly can people understand this? The size of the markets, literally, I could give you a number and it's insane. But it's more of like, how quickly can we get people to understand what this does to people? How quickly can I get someone into a cold plunge and realize like, wow, there is a night and day difference, that this is an alternative option for me for my overall mood, my overall energy, my immune system, vice versa on the sauna. So I think that's like more what we're up against. But I think, we look at this industry as tens of billions of dollars that we can be, a major player in. Like, that's what we want to be. We want to be a leader in this market.
I'll give you the last word here. For those who are on the line who are thinking about investing, but they're not there yet, what would you tell them? What do you want them to know?
If you have a belief in sauna or cold plunge, we have brought together world-class talent to go be nerds and geeks and be the best that we can be in that industry. I think we have a really exciting, I think we're just hitting our stride into like really the fundamentals of our business. Unit economics are starting to flip. There's a really exciting upside here. So I say, if you're into the mission, like, that's one, like we carry that flag proudly, and we want to be a leader in preventative health in this country, in this world. And equally, I think our business is we're early. It's just getting started here, and there's a huge opportunity in front of us.
If you like what you heard on the show today, you can check out why Plunge received a 4.2 out of 5 stars at kingscrowd.com. You can now invest on WeFunder until July 31st, 2025. And please like, subscribe, and share our podcasts wherever you listen to podcasts so more listeners like you can find us. Thanks for tuning in.